So, welcome again to the continuation of our class on budgeting and budgetary control. So, this time around, we'll be looking at what are the objectives of budgeting. We've looked at different types of budgets. Talk about functional budget, under which we looked at sales budget, production budget, service function budget. Another form of budget under functional budget is labor cost budget. So we also look at cash budget and the rest. But today, we'll be looking at what are the objectives, what's the main purpose, what's the specific goal of preparing a budget. Number one is a budget is prepared to aid the planning of organizational operation or to aid the planning of annual operations. Every organization prepares budget. Number one essence and objectives of preparing a budget is to plan. So that we have a foresight, we have a focus in our operations. We don't be distracted and will be able to actually move alongside with whatever plans we have made. So number one important objective of budgeting is planning. Number two is coordinating the activities of various parts of the organization. So another important objective of budgeting is that it coordinates the activities of various parts of the organization. Through budget, we can coordinate the activity of the organization. For example, a situation whereby our labor cost budget had already specified the amount we are intending to spend on a skilled labor, grades of labor now, skilled labor, semi-skilled labor, and the unskilled labor. In that case, this will actually preempt the personnel department to be able to coordinate its staff alongside with what the production budget needs or what the production departments, the types of grades of labor they need for them to carry out their production process. So it allows and endeavors the organization to be able to coordinate different activities in the organization. Another very important objective of budget is that it allows communication to various responsibility center managers. So, number one is planning. Number two is coordinating. Number three is communication. Number four is budget allows to control activities. In an organization that is always aiming and targeting to be efficient and effective, control is an inevitable tool. So, budgeting allows for control. It allows that this forecasted range of financials is not exceeded. When a firm or an organization budgets to spend, let's assume 100,000 naira in the production department. Anytime there is a need to spend more than this in reality or during the actual, there's budget, there's actual. Anytime there is need to spend more, this will actually be like an indicator, a green light to the firm that what is causing this excess spending in that different department as against what has been budgeted for the department. So it allows the organization to be able to control its expenses, control its costs, control every of the activities that is going on in the firm. Another very important objective of budgeting is it allows for evaluating performance of manager. Evaluation. It allows the organization to be able to evaluate, to assess what's the level of performance that is being carried out within the organization, either by managers, by workers, or by anyone. Is it within the range of our budget? Is it favorable or is it unfavorable? It allows for evaluation. So, quickly before rounding up this class, we'll be looking at what are the basic terminologies in budgeting. Now, these are things you need to take cognizance of and be aware of and understand the rationale that guides the different concepts in budgeting, as they could be asked by examiners to be explained under the exam condition. What are the different concepts or terminologies you are possible to meet with in your cost accounting or management accounting examination? Number one concept or terminology in budgeting is what we refer to as a budget manual. What do we call a budget manual? The budget manual sets out the budget guidelines and the budgeting instructions. So a budget manual is like a document, is like a book, it's like a template that outlines, that instructs, that sets out the budget guidelines. What are the budgeting steps? What are the cycles that must actually guide the budget operation, the budget guidelines, and what are the instructions on each budget? So it is the work, or most of these budget guidelines, budget instructions are contained in the budget manual. You know, it's like what we refer to as a staff handbook in a firm. The staff handbook is such that guides each staff on their code of conduct in the organization. So, budget manual also serves as a guideline. It serves as a kind of map that outlines how the budgeting process should actually go from inception to its conclusion. Another basic concept or terminology we come across in budgeting is what we refer to as budget committee. What's a budget committee? A budget committee is actually a coalition of members of senior management that oversees all budgetary matters. So a budget committee is like a group of people that is made up of members of senior management. You know, senior management in the fact that they are responsible for making strategic decisions as regarding the operation of the organization. So they are made up of senior management at the higher level. You know, according to the levels of management, we have three. We have the strategic level of management, we have the operational, and we have the tactical. Or in other words, we have the high level of management, the medium level, and the low level of management. So, but the senior level of management in terms and in charge of making strategic decisions are the one that oversee the budgetary issues or matters. And most of the time they are contained, or they are comprised of: 1, the Chief Executive Officer, CEO. 2, the heads of Strategic Business Unit, SBU, Strategic Business Unit Head, and the Chief Financial Officer, CFO. So these are the people that actually makes up the budget committee, and from time to time monitors the trail of budgetary matters and ensure that is in accordance and in consonance with what was predetermined at the inception of the budget implementation. Another basic terminology we are going to come across in budgeting is what we refer to as principal budget factor. Now, principal budget factor, or what we refer to as limiting factor or key budget factors. Now listen to any of those three. Any of those three can be used by examiners. They are synonymously or interchangeably used. Principal budget factor, limiting factor, or key budget factor. So, this is a factor which at any time is an overriding planning limitation on the activities of the organization. Now, listen. An organization could actually make a budget actually on raw materials or materials. We don't want to spend anything above 50,000 naira. On labor, we don't want to spend anything above, let's say, 70,000 naira. So, now, in all of this planning, at the planning stage, don't forget, that's why we'll always compute what we refer to as variance. Because a budget is different from an actual. A budget can be made most of the time, like 99% of the time, is not always equal to what we face in reality. So, the key factors that poses a limitation, the key factor that actually affects us to achieve our CSF, critical success factor, the key factor that limits us, that serve as an overriding item or element in limiting our budget proposition, is what we refer to as principal budget factor. For example, staffing limitation. For example, when we have limited staff, in that case, at times we need to outsource, maybe at an higher rate, or we need to pay overtime. Or, for example, a situation where there's scarcity of materials. These are different principal budget factors that we have. So, thank you once again, everyone. In this class, we've been able to look at the basic terminologies in budgeting, the different objectives of budgeting, and previous series, we've been able to look at meaning of budget, types of budget. Are you missing on any of these lecture videos? Then do well to go back and check up on our previous series.